You fixed something at your last retreat. Maybe it was your registration flow. Maybe it was the way your team got information. Or maybe it was fixing how your emails went out. You made the fix and you felt good about it. And then you had your next event and a different version of the same problem played out. Only this time it showed up somewhere else. That's not a coincidence. The same gaps show up over and over again. And today I'm going to walk you through all 7 of them. What they are, what it costs you, and the specific fix to make sure they don't happen again. If you got a notebook or laptop nearby, now is a great time to grab it. So let's start with the 3 gaps that directly impact your guest experience. These are the ones that I would fix first because they're the ones that your guest feels even though they may not say it aloud. So gap 1 is registration data that goes nowhere. Your form collects the information: name, dietary restrictions, session preferences, maybe even travel details. But once that information is submitted, where does it actually go? If it stays within your form's platform and someone has to manually take that information and put it somewhere else, that is a gap. And what it's costing you is accuracy. Every time information has to be moved manually from one place to another, you run the risk of misinformation or information being typed in incorrectly or somebody forgetting to do it altogether. The fix? Connect your registration system to one central place that all your team has access to. This could be your CRM, a spreadsheet, or your coordination hub. The tool itself doesn't really matter. What matters is the decision that when somebody fills out a registration, that information is being automatically moved into its correct location and that nobody is manually having to move that information. Gap 2 is a confirmation email with no follow-up. This one is so common. Someone registers, they get the confirmation email, and then silent. They don't hear from you again until maybe a week before the event when you send them some of the logistics. Or worse, maybe they don't hear from you at all again until they show up on site. That silence is a gap within your guest experience. Between the moment they sign up and the event day, this is your time to build anticipation. You can share logistics, answer questions before they come up. Just basically really make them feel like they're being loved and cared for before they even get on site. The fix is to build a pre-event communication flow with specific touch points at defined intervals. We're talking welcome emails a few days after they register, a logistics email a few weeks before the event date, along with some follow-up emails a couple of days before the event. The content and timing will depend solely upon your event, but the principle is the same. Your guest should be never sitting in silence wondering what's coming next. Gap 3 is automations that were built but never tested. This is the gap that is responsible for the "I thought everything was set up" moment on event day. And it's the one that I want you to take the most seriously. You built the automation, you set the trigger, you wrote the email, and then you moved on to the next thing. But you never actually ran the test. You never registered a fake client or attendee so that you could see that the confirmation email came through or that the follow-up welcome message was received. And you never verified that the right email fired at the right time and the right order. An automation that hasn't been tested is just a guess. It might work perfectly, but it also might send the wrong email to the wrong person. And you won't know until either you test it or your guests themselves discover the problem for you. The fix for this is before you open registration to the public, to run through the process yourself as if you were your guest. Register a test email. Watch each email fire when it should. Check the timing, the content, and the order. If something's wrong, you'll catch it when it costs you merely 5 minutes instead of catching it on event day when it costs you your time, your attention, and your guests' trust. These next 2 gaps don't really touch your guests directly, but they do add more time for you and your team. And on event day, that extra time pulls you away from where your attention really should be. So gap 4 is a coordination hub that nobody uses. You built it. Maybe it's a Google Sheet. Maybe it's a hub in Notion. Maybe it's even an Asana project, and you gave your team access. And then nobody references it. Your team still texts you with questions. Decisions are still sitting in your email threads. The hub sits there with information that was current 3 weeks ago. This is one of the most frustrating works because you did the work in actually building it. The problem isn't that the hub doesn't exist, it's that the hub hasn't been maintained. It was never made as the go-to place for information, and more importantly, as the first place that your team should check. The fix? This is where the hub method comes in. Build the hub as the home for all of your event information. Update it as decisions are made and not in batches at the end of the week, especially not close to the event. Set boundaries for what each person owns within it and broadcast it. Actively make sure that your team knows to go there to find the answers to the questions they have. Check the hub has to become the default response until it's the default action. Gap 5 is vendor information that lives in your email. This is a gap that is responsible for the who do I call regarding updates to catering. Every vendor contact, every confirmation, every email, every decision, every detail about timing, delivery, and setup is still buried in a thread that only you have access to. Your team can't answer vendor questions without coming to you. If something changes on event day and you're in the middle of a session and all the answers that your team needs is in your emails, then that information is locked away. The fix is to create a dedicated vendor and logistics section within your coordination hub. Vendor name, contact information, confirmation status, specific notes updated from the moment that you sign them, not assembled a week before the event. Your team should be able to look up any vendor's detail without needing to hit you up for that information. Before we get into the last two gaps, I want to mention something. If you're going through this list and checking things off in your head, you might want a structured way to be able to see the bigger picture and see where you stand and not just the tech layer. I created a free assessment called the Event Pulse Check. It covers everything from foundation and budget through registration, team coordination, and day of operations. It takes only about 5 minutes, and when you're done, you get a profile that shows you exactly where you stand, what areas you're doing well in, and what areas to focus on. It pairs well with what we're talking about today. You've got your list of the gaps, and the pulse check will give you a full picture of the planning for your entire event. You can find the link down below. And now on to the last two gaps. The last two gaps don't usually cause problems during the event, but they cause problems after. And it's the reason that your events probably feel like they never improve, even when you really want it to. Gap 6 is no post-event emails built into your system. The event ends, you're exhausted, and you're relieved. And that follow-up that you plan to send, it either goes out late, it's inconsistent, or it doesn't go out at all. A thank you email, a feedback request, a resource delivery, a re-enrollment into your next event. These aren't optional extra. There's the bridge between this event and your next one. And when they don't happen, you lose momentum, you lose feedback that you could have had, and you lose the easiest sales conversion you could have had with someone who was just excited about being with you and had an amazing experience at your event. The fix is to build your post-event communication before the event starts. Write it in advance, and you can always make updates right before it goes out, and then set it up to trigger within 24 hours after the event has concluded. A thank you first, maybe a feedback request a day or two later, resources after that, and then a re-enrollment into your next program, perhaps even with an exclusive detail. When it's built before the event, it happens whether you're tired or not. Gap 7 is a tech setup that only you understand. You know how your system works. You know what platform does what. You know how they connect and what to do when something breaks. But if you got sick on event day or something comes up that you can't handle it, would someone on your team or a contractor be able to take over? Would they know where to find that information? If the answer is no, then your system has a single point of failure. And that's a gap that limits everything. It limits your ability to be able to delegate. It limits your ability to step back in your event, and it also limits your ability to grow and expand beyond what you can personally handle. The fix is to create a simple tech document. One document that explains what each tech item does, how it connects, and how to troubleshoot, and who to contact if they need support. It doesn't have to be complicated. It just really needs to exist. Think of it as a user guide for your systems, an SOP, if you will, written for someone who isn't you. That's all 7. If you recognize some of these within your own setup, that's not a problem. It's a starting point. You know what they are now, and you know what the fix is for each one. And you know these are not unique to just you. These are gaps that are showing up for other people as well. Now you've got the gap list and you've got the fixes. But there's one more thing that's the difference between things working as one piece, things that are working together as a whole system. It's the order in which you build it in. Because all these fixes can't be done all out. And the order in which you tackle them determines whether or not they connect properly, or whether you end up with another collection of pieces that don't communicate with one another. In my next video, I'm walking you through what a complete retreat back-end setup looks like, and the specific order to build them in so that each piece supports the next one. Go ahead and click the video on your screen right now.